welcome to the National Pulse. I'm Raheem Kassam, editor-in-chief of thenationalpulse.com. What a time to be alive, to be able to plug a laptop into a potato and come live from a hotel room in downtown Philadelphia. Today, I'm joined by Harlan Hill on the couch with me here in downtown Philadelphia. And the reason we're here, I don't even know what day it is anymore. The reason we're here is, of course, because of the big fraud that is being perpetuated on the United States here in Philadelphia, in capitals all across the United States, where the votes are being counted and then counted and then counted, and they keep on finding more and more votes. So we came up here to Philadelphia, the closest place to Washington, D.C., that we thought we could deploy to bring you the latest breaking news from on the ground. Now, we've just come in off the street. We were out in this morning after the War Room show. Harlan's been out all morning documenting what's going on downtown. There are crowds of... in fact, we can probably play as B-roll, I think, the Periscope that I did this afternoon after going out there. If we can get that up in the background or in a side shot, guys, that'd be appreciated. Harlan, there were plenty of people out on both sides this morning. Let's talk about it. I think we're going to be seeing a whole lot more in terms of people over the next couple of hours and maybe days. Yeah, my understanding is that people are on our side understand the importance of showing the president that we were committed to fighting this and sticking out, and that he's not doing it alone. And I know I can see on social media and from people that are texting and calling both of us that the city is going to be flooded with Trump supporters. I think that people were further galvanized. They were already coming. They're already motivated, but they're further motivated to come to Philadelphia because, what is happening here in the courts is absolutely disgusting. Well, let's play clip 2 for people here so they can see a little bit of what we saw this afternoon. Let's roll clip 2. All right, guys. Here we are, downtown Philadelphia. Got up early this morning, 5 o'clock, came down here. We'll be reporting with more information from inside the room where everything's going on. But I wanted to take a second, put up my Christmas on, take a second and show you guys what's happening out here. Let's look around. See a lot of Trump supporters out here now. And a lot of lefties too. Now, you can see, interestingly, the Trump supporters are in this pen, locked in this pen over here. I guess what you might call kettling. But they've got this section over here. And you see the left over here, which most of the news media are pointing their cameras at, of course, not pointing at the Trump supporters. You see the left that are over here, kind of more free to move about. And then also, they're just in the middle of the street here. So they're not penned in like the Trump supporters are penned in. That's the first thing that stands out to me. That's a good sign. See, look, this is the way the media does it. The media points it at these guys, right? It doesn't point it at these guys. Here you go again, look. The media here is pointing towards the left, okay? And the media here is pointing at the left, okay? Nobody's coming in here and doing a shot like this, okay? Anyway, I want to make sure that we're out here for all that long today. We're going to be working on it. Let's come back from this. Thanks, guys. That was brilliant. That was perfect. So people at home can see kind of the similar scenes that we've been seeing on the afternoon. Pretty peaceful, Harlan, but not entirely peaceful. And I'll say this. Number one, it took all of about 3 minutes of me being out there before somebody hit me, right? Now, they didn't hit me very hard, but still, bless her. We'll be playing that when we come back from the break as well. And also threats of violence from the left. You heard one of the guys talking about the president. We have that clip as well that we're going to play in the next segment too. What I want people to understand right now, because there are so many people, and I guess, look, if you're watching this, you're at home. So there are so many people at home right now wondering, oh, should I go? Is it safe for me to go? Realistically, what could I do if I go? What am I even going to be involved in? And my attitude towards this is, go and we'll find something for you to do. Whether it's protesting outside, whether it's being a part of the official stuff, whether it's helping organize things, arrange things. And if you don't, and there's a thing in January where Joe Biden is the president, you want to look back at this moment and go, hey, I didn't do something.
All right. Well, and it's important not just, I was saying earlier, it's really important that the president sees how motivated and that we stand behind him. But it's also important that these elected officials across the country that are stealing this election see that the people are not going to stand by idle while our democracy is made into a mockery.
Right. I agree with that. How much time do we have left here, guys, by the way? I want to make sure that we're on time and on target here. Give me a time. Okay, 30 seconds left of this segment. When we come back, I'm going to show you some of the clips, some more of the clips from downtown Philadelphia right here. In terms of what we're hearing about the count itself, well, they found another 369,000 votes suddenly. Just fun votes. The boat ferries coming by, dropping ballots off. We'll be back with more from the National Pulse in a second. To be with you here live from Philadelphia is because we have just come in from outside, hanging out with the protesters on both sides, listening to them. I actually had a very good conversation with one of the left-wing protesters, and he started shouting. I mean, he wasn't actually nice to begin with, but I said to him, look, calm down, let's have a conversation. And he did. And then he started shouting at people on the left who were trying to shout me down, saying, no, we're actually having a nice conversation. So you see, it can be done. A lot of it has to do with tone, I've found, which you're not particularly good at.
My bedside manner is bad.
No, it was utterly amazing. You got asked to move your car this morning because you were literally parked on a corner, and you got upset at the way you were being asked to move your car. So we're not sending Harlan Hill out to the front lines here, but I want to come back to a couple of points before we play you more from what we saw outside here in Philadelphia today. I want to thank you all for being here. Natalie Winters is back in Washington, D.C., running the best live blog on the fraud statistics out there. So make sure you, and the stories that are coming in. So make sure you head over to thenationalpulse.com/support if you like our work. Go to thenationalpulse.com. The second breaking news item right in the middle of in the page is the live blog. So make sure that you're following along with that, sharing all of the stories. Because guess what, Harlan? Twitter suspended the National Pulse Twitter account this morning. 75,000 followers on the National Pulse Twitter account, and we have a 10-hour suspension. And they said to us, our suspension was for reporting what the Nevada authorities said was going on in Nevada, what the CDC said about going and voting in person, and posting about the 138,000 ballots that were found in Michigan. Now, none of those stories were untrue. We didn't editorialize any of them. I didn't even put tabloid headlines on them. It was literally just live blogs of the statements that were being made by the Nevada authorities, by the CDC, and by the state of Michigan.
Suppression of information.
And it's suppression of information.
It actually happened to Jason Miller, senior advisor at the campaign today, too. I mean, all he said, literally his tweet was, we got great news, a great legal ruling out of Philadelphia.
Right.
That's all he said.
Yeah. Which is a matter of fact.
Yeah. And the tweet was deleted for it.
If you're a Trump supporter, the legal news that originally came down this morning was both a statement of fact, it was a legal ruling, and it was great news for them, which is an opinion, right? There's no disinformation there.
Not at all.
Right? Jason Miller's not going out there and pretending it's great news for the Biden campaign, or pretending to be a Biden campaign surrogate and saying it's great news.
Exaggerating.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
It's extraordinary. Harlan, let's talk about the news as it's breaking right now, though, because on the televisions, you can even see it in the reflection here on the television in front of us, i.e., behind the camera here. We have the. I always play CNN. I always watch CNN because the argument is know thy enemy, right? And you got to know what the enemy is saying to know how to respond. I always put CNN on. We always get abuse in the live chat during the War Room show for having CNN on the background. And I always say to people, in order to respond and react to what the other side is doing, you have to know what they're doing, right? So we've got CNN on here, and CNN's chyron right now is Biden cuts into Trump's lead in Pennsylvania. Now, they're saying that about 369,000 new votes have been found, right? Like they found the 138,000 in Michigan, like they found in Wisconsin. And the Trump campaign, by the way, now, ladies and gentlemen, has on Boris Epstein and Steve Cortez and Jason Miller and the whole team, and I think the president himself has tweeted this as well, they have a URL that people can go to. If you've seen fraud, if you have evidence of fraud, if you've seen incidents, if you have friends who have told you stories, you got to report them, because what they're doing right now is they're putting entire spreadsheets together all across the entire country of where this has gone on. I mean, I've had people tell me that they've seen things like that, extra ballots that haven't been accounted for. Right? Where did they come from? They had a set number of people that were supposed to show up at the polling station, a maximum number of people, and they ended up with more ballots than that. So everybody has to go out there, go on social media, find that URL, and make sure that you do your citizens' duty. So 368 new thousand ballots.
How is it possible that they only ever find these boxes of ballots in Democratic areas? And how is it possible that it's only Democratic areas in Democratic states that are incapable of counting the vote in a reasonable time frame?
Right.
I mean, shouldn't it be obvious to all of us what's happening?
Yeah. Well, we were talking about that in the break, right?
Yeah.
I think most Americans don't actually know what mass voter fraud like this looks like. I'm very familiar with it. I've lived through it. I've seen it. I've documented it. I saw it in East London. We've seen it in the Midlands in England. You see it all across Europe, or have seen it all across Europe. A lot of European countries now say you can't do mail-in ballots anymore. They tried it. Everybody realized there was massive fraud going on. Yeah. And you've also seen it if you've ever read a book about elections in the third world, or you've ever watched a documentary about dictators in the developing world, right? You know what it looks like. But to most Americans, number one, no offense, guys, you don't watch a lot of international news. No. Americans just in general don't do that. So I'm not sure a lot of Americans do know what this looks like, right? If this is not just, let's wait and see, and I'm sure everything will shake out fine. It doesn't. This is how they steal elections. And the next thing they do is put troops on the streets to stop you protesting. And the next thing they do is cut off all your ability to communicate with each other. Oh, wait, that's already happening. So what's it going to take for Americans to wake up and take to the streets and realize they are being royally screwed over here?
I think the Trump campaign needs to lay out all these instances of fraud. And I think that's what they're doing. I think that's why they're asking for all this information. It's not just for the legal case that they're building. I think it's also for the case they're going to build in the court of public opinion, saying like, okay, we have 10,000 cases of this abuse. We have 50,000 cases of this abuse. And they can explain, they can illustrate to the American people, okay, this is how the vote's actually being stolen.
Right. Here's how elections are supposed to be run. Right. And here is a stack of evidence that shows they're not being run.
Exactly. I mean, people need to see that, because right now it's too ambiguous. Like I think we all feel like it's being stolen, and we all read on social media of all these different individuals. We haven't been able to articulate how vast it is.
Yeah. How long have we got, guys? 1 minute left here in the segment. Okay, so we're going to bring you these clips in the next segment, some more of what we saw on the ground here in Philadelphia. After this show, I always commit to doing the show if I can do it when I'm on the road, and we figured out a way to bring you the show live today. I'm sorry if there are any technical issues. I can't even tell if there are any. So we're just going to have to live with it. When we come back, we'll bring you more of those clips, talk about more of what's going on, more about what we know, because the same thing is happening in Georgia as well. And you've been on the phone with lots of people today talking about what's happening in Georgia. So we'll talk about that as well over the course of this next show. More ballots being just magically found. The ballot fairy is sprinkling the pixie dust all over these Democrat areas, all across the country. In the meantime, this is the National Pulse. Raheem Kassam here with Harlan Hill, live from Philadelphia. We'll be right back on Bill America's Voice after this break. welcome back. And he said, welcome back to the War Room. Welcome back to the National Pulse. I'm Raheem Kassam, editor-in-chief of the nationalpulse.com. You're watching Real America's Voice. We're at 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. today. We have another War Room special. We'll have Richard Barris on, a great pollster from the Big Data Poll Company, joined by Jack Maxey, Stephen K. Bannon, Foxy Midge, Alexander Priya, and the whole team down there in the War Room. I'll try and join if possible, but we're heading back out into the streets in Philadelphia to cover what's going on here as protests take place all across the country at the moment. Quite frankly, you're starting to see, and Harlan, you know, your sources are telling you that more and more people are heading here. There's going to be a real show of force of Trump supporters. I want to make sure that if you're in the area, if you're anywhere near the area, 2 hours, 3 hours drive, your job is to come and be a citizen right now. Your job is to be with your brothers and sisters and stand shoulder to shoulder. Your job is not to be at home tweeting. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you can do that from outside on the streets as well and show yourself.
Well, because they certainly are.
Yeah,
there were just as many liberals out there.
Oh, more
or more.
Yeah,
and it was clear that some of them were very well organized and probably paid. They came with a PA system and music all kinds of elaborate banners. Yeah. And in my understanding, I was actually talking to one of my sources that is a Democratic consultant that I still keep in touch with, and he was telling me that he had heard that they were redeploying assets from DC that had been put there for election night to Philadelphia because it was right up I-95.
Yeah, we did it this morning.
Yeah, we did just a couple of hours.
I popped my Wawa cherry.
Yeah, he had never been to Wawa, so
it was all right.
Yeah,
good coffee. Not that this is an advert. I don't. You don't have to go there, or do if you want. I don't know. Harlan, more ballots being found in Georgia now. Tell us about that.
Well, I mean, the margin is down to 13,000 votes, and we have 98% of the votes reporting. But I don't even trust that, Raheem.
Right.
I mean, we were told last night that we should be settled in Arizona and everything should be wrapped. Yeah. We were told that Georgia was wrapping up. And as soon as we get there and it's clear that things are moving in the wrong direction for Democrats, miraculously 10, 50, 360,000 ballots materialize.
So they've talked about, all right, originally it was they found another 9,000, then they found another 20,000. Now they're saying that there's another 30,000.
Isn't it so obvious what is happening? I mean, this is the same reason on election night that they suspended the tabulation of votes in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. They had their number. They knew that what they were working against on our side. They kind of knew what the division of ballots would be between Biden and Trump, whether it was on election day where Trump overwhelmingly won or Biden in the early vote. And so they had done those calculations, and then they went out and they materialized all these other ballots to overcome the advantage that the president had. It is so obvious what's happening. And they keep going back to the well every time that they need to make up the difference.
So we'll get on to whether or not they'll even be verified as ballots later on when all these challenges happen. And as I understand it, the Trump campaign is, got people deployed all over the place. Lawsuits are going in Nevada, and here in Philadelphia, and so on and so forth. But I still don't think it's enough, right? I'm a flood the zone kind of person. I don't want these targeted little strikes here and there. I think you hit them with every single thing they have. If they want to be tied up in the courts for 6 months, let them tie themselves up in the court for 6 months.
What would the Democrats do if they were in our shoes?
No.
If we were stealing the election?
Yeah, I mean, but effectively they're doing it, right? Because from a Democrat's perspective, they're seeing it that way, right? They're seeing it the way we're seeing it.
Yeah. I mean, but what I know would happen if they had won is that there would be a demonstration on the streets of Washington.
Of course. You have 1 million people on the streets of Washington.
And it acts as a form of intimidation, right? They're trying to scare Trump voters from coming out to places like Philadelphia because, they don't want there to be a random shooting or stabbings as we saw in Washington the other night.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's play clip 1 right here because this is the intimidation that we saw this morning. Let's roll it.
Right now, I'm gonna blow his brains out. I'll kill him.
I'm going to blow his brains out. I'm going to kill him. Hold on. Let's be very clear. This isn't midnight in the middle of a fight. This is just one protester left-wing protester decided to come on over to the Trump supporters and start screaming in our faces about how he'd like to shoot the president of the United States.
Yeah, blow his brains out. And we were only there at that point, we'd probably been there for like 4 or 5 minutes.
Right.
So who knows, like what else is being said and done in the times that we're doing a show like
here's
this?
the thing, though, you've got all these cameras there,
Right? You never see that.
You don't see anything.
Yeah.
Look, we've got CNN on the background in here.
Yeah.
They're not playing anything. Oh, I'm sure they've got cameras down there. But what they'll be doing is they'll be taking footage, harvesting footage, keeping it on, and then they'll chop it up into a little package that they'll air tonight and say, peaceful protesters outside Philadelphia were met with ravenous Trump supporters seeking to suck their blood, and all the while it's the Trump supporters that penned in, can't move from where their location is. They had little bags of cookies, bottles of water, and the other side is just coming over to the pen, screaming in their faces how they're going to blow the president's brains out.
So while you were on War Room, I was out there getting some footage, and I think there was a very telling moment where there was a point that it seemed as though Trump supporters could be attacked by, there could be a clash between both sides. And the police came in. There was probably about, 30 police on bicycles came, and they put their bicycles up to form a wall. But they didn't put it the wall up against Trump supporters. They didn't turn their backs. They turned their backs to the Trump supporters, meaning that the ones that were clearly the aggressors to law enforcement were not the Trump supporters. It was the liberals that were crossing the street, screaming and yelling and acting like they wanted to start a fight.
Yeah, and as you say, Holland, it's intimidation. It's a way of intimidating people. It's a way of getting what you want. And as far as I'm concerned, people who think that the president of the United States has won this election, has won re-election, need to get out on the streets themselves. This is the time to do it. This is the time to take action. It's not tomorrow. It's not the day after that. I had friends this afternoon who said to me, they said to me this morning, hey, should we come to Philadelphia as well from Washington, D.C.? I said, yeah, you should. Then they texted me again at 3 p.m. said, okay, we're on our way now. I said, what are you talking about? We talked about this morning. What took you so long, right? Do not wait to take action. Wherever you are in the country, this is a call to action. Peaceful action, but action. Show yourselves, show your bodies, show that you care. Otherwise, you know what? Number one, it's a deep, deep morale pit for the Trump campaign if they don't see their supporters out there. They're fighting all these legal battles, they're fighting the media battles, they're fighting the fundraising battles to go through all of this and more and more. And to not have the support, to not have people out there would be bad for morale. We'll talk about more and show you the little assault we had foisted upon us after this break. So Twitter has kicked off the National Pulse for the next, I think it's now 7 hours left on the ban, because we've been doing the best live blog, quite frankly, in terms of the fraud coverage that there is. You can head on over to thenationalpulse.com to support our work. You can also find us on Parler, since we're no longer on Twitter. If you just go to the Parler website, you'll be able to find us on there. It's the National Pulse. And also on Facebook. We're still not restricted there yet either. So we continue to pump out the information. Natalie Winters has it on her Twitter feed. That's at Natalie G. Winters. I have it on mine at Raheem Kassam. And I was just scrolling through Twitter in the break, actually, and it kind of broke my heart to see this tweet. I wanted to read it to you guys. So this is a guy called Kenny Webster. I think some people will know him. I think he's a radio host somewhere down on the Gulf Coast. And Kenny Webster tweets, my friend John Walton died in July of 2019. According to the TexasBallot.org, he voted on October the 24th. And then it's got a screen grab of John Walton, Fort Bend County, Precinct 3149, voted in person. Ballot received October 24th. And these are the kind of examples that we're looking for from all over the country. If you have examples, obviously use that URL that the Trump campaign is putting out right now. But I'd also like you to do one more thing if you have the time. And I think you should try and find the time. Go to the National Pulse website, and there's a link at the top that says tips. And at that link, you can send us advice, tips, comments, questions, criticisms, sartorial advice, whatever you want. But in this occasion, we'd really like you to send us examples of electoral fraud that you've seen. Don't go on Twitter and look for something from somebody else. We're going through all of that. I want to know if it happened to you. Get me some details, and we'll go through all of that. And now I want to bring you clip 3 from this morning. Again, we were out there for like 5 minutes max when this happened. Harlan this morning out here in Philadelphia. Let's roll clip 3.
That's right. Hi, Dad.
Do you know your dad?
Go ahead and film me. What's that?
Do you know your dad?
Do I know my dad?
Yeah. Who you saying hi, dad, to?
Now, I won't claim to be particularly polite there, but she was harassing you. You're my friend. She was getting in your face. And so I came over, whipped the camera out. And as soon as I whipped the camera out, she says, "Hi, Dad." Now, knowing what you know about these people and knowing what I know about these people, how to rile them up, my follow-up question, it was just a follow-up question. I'm a reporter. I was following up with a question. My follow-up question was, "Do you know your dad?" And she just lost it and hit me. She hit me here, tried to knock the phone out of my hand. As you can see from the video, she wasn't able to do that. She's only about 4 foot tall. But nonetheless, these are the resorts that these people, these are the things that they resort to when they're mocked in public, when they're made to feel silly. Because she came over trying to make you feel silly and small. Yeah. And we turned that around quite well, I think. But the fact that, you're willing to just start smacking someone else as a result of them making a fool out of you in public. I mean, that's who these people are. Very soft, very glass-jawed, can't take it. And I posted that to Twitter as well. A lot of lefty blue check marks go, "Oh my God, Ricky, you snowflake, are you okay?" No. The term assault is a legal definition, right? Technically it's battery, but if I was really complaining, I would have made a complaint, an official complaint. The point was we were mocking her because here's somebody who comes over to you in a big crowd out there, gets in your face because of who you are, and then she can't take it when she's giving it back.
It's hilarious.
It was very fun.
We were at lunch after that just laughing about it. I mean, because you're right. I mean, they are totally glass. I mean, she came over all big, bad, and tough, telling me to get out of her city and all
That's
of this.
True.
And in seconds, all that bravado, it just fell apart. It fell apart.
The Daily Mail has called me a professional wind-up merchant.
Yeah.
And I think they're probably right. I always, all my ex-girlfriends will tell you, I always know just how to rile someone up right at the wrong time and exactly how to do it. And that's what we did with these people. See how much fun you could be having out here, guys, if you were with us. Make sure that if you're in any of these cities where it matters that there are bodies on the ground, that you go there. Harlan, so we were talking about Georgia. You've also got this new legal fight now taking place in Nevada as well. Rick Grenell is down there, leading a team down there. Look, let's take a step back from all of this, because a lot of people out there are like, is it even worth it at this point? Should we give up? Does he have a path to victory? So let's talk about that. Does the president actually have a path to victory at this point, or is this all just a long, drawn-out nonsense?
I mean, I still think the president has a path to victory. I mean, based on where the polls are currently in Georgia, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, the president should carry those. He needs Arizona. Based on all the data that the Trump campaign has gone through, all of the modeling, it seems like we're on track to win that state by a very slim margin. Now, many of these states...
Because there are also a lot of military ballots yet to be counted.
All these seats are still going to go to a recount, though. I mean, this is going to take a time. I mean, the media is going to go and declare Biden the victor as soon as tonight. I'm sure that they will. Tonight, tomorrow, it's going to happen. But that doesn't mean that he actually is.
Right. It doesn't carry any legal enforceable weight.
Not.
Right? Saying the Associated Press calling it for Joe Biden and CNN calling it for Joe Biden, they could call it right now. In fact, I dare them to call it right now. Well, you might as well, because you're not going to have any more evidence in 12 hours than you've got right now. So call it. Just call it. Get it out of the way. Make your call so that we can all see what frauds you are. Make your call. In fact, after the show, I'm going to call CNN. I'm going to just call the switchboard and say, make your call. Yeah. I'm going to ask to talk to Jeff Zucker and say, make your call right now, because here's the deal. The path to victory isn't just, very clearly still there for the president. I actually believe it happens to be there for the president way more than it is for Joe Biden in this circumstance. Number one, I don't think if the people get out on the streets and because we're going to talk about this in a second, the sheriff here in this county where Philadelphia is refusing to enforce the court order from this morning. Extraordinary Mugabe type stuff going on here, right? But I said it on the night. I said it on the night of the election. At the very end of our war room broadcast, I turned to Steve and I said to him, I just cannot see Joe Biden getting beyond 263. I just can't see it. And sure, what's the number up on the screen right there?
250.
It's 253. He just doesn't have it. I don't believe he has it. And now you're seeing the change that's taking place in Arizona as well. And the Fox News guy has locked his Twitter account. So Steiwalt's the guy that makes these calls, right? He's the guy who's like, okay. And then, of course, it gets kicked up to Lachlan Murdoch. But Steiwalt's the guy. Let's talk about that when we come back from the break. Fox News, once again, being disingenuous. And this time, the campaign actually doing something about it. Kudos to them. We'll be back with Harlan Hill, National Pulse, Raheem Kassam, in just a second. We actually put up some, we have a swag store now at the National Pulse. As you know, it's the nationalpulse.com/swag. We put up some Stop the Fraud T-shirts this afternoon. So, I know a lot of people have been designing all of these great memes and everything. And we just thought if people are coming out here onto the streets, you're going to want something to wear to show your disgust like I have. So make sure you head on over there if you want some of that stuff. We don't actually put big markups on it because it's not a profit making venture for us. It's for us it's about you getting to show what you think and care about. Look, there's 369,000 votes they're now saying in Pennsylvania. There's another 30,000 votes they put together in Georgia today. There were also Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, I think it was. Didn't they say that they had, or maybe it was New York? I'll find out later. They found some of the missing ballots on like a USB drive or something like that. They had been saved on there. Some data or something had been saved on there. And that's where they found this missing ballot. How could you possibly make the case that even if you found X amount of votes on a hard drive, on a thumb drive, that they should be counted? No, I'm sorry. If those are parked aside, what you do is you either go back to those people and you say, you've got to cast your vote again because I don't trust that these are legit, or you turn around and say that, sorry, you can't count those.
Don't you know all these hard drives that turn up are Russian disinformation campaigns?
Oh, they flood those over the hard drives. Hunter's hard drive.
Yeah.
All of it.
It's all Russia.
But seriously though, I mean, how do you trust that a USB thing that had gone missing or that wasn't being counted hasn't been interfered with, hasn't been tampered with? It's just an Excel spreadsheet.
You have to throw those votes. You have to throw that hard drive to the side.
You either throw it aside or you contact the people and say, hey,
you can trace it back to the individual people.
If you can trace it back and say, because look, I don't want anybody to lose their vote over bureaucratic incompetence.
But if you count their votes as they are written up on that hard drive, you may be taking their vote away because the data may have been manipulated. You have to maintain some chain of custody over these ballots from the time that they leave the voters' hands and they go into either the ballot scanner or into a box. You have to maintain security over those ballots. And if it's just on a random hard drive that shows up, that does a disservice to not just the voter, but the entire electoral process in our republic.
So what do you see as the path forward here? Not in an electoral sense for the president. I think we all know where it is. I think the president's path is actually much clearer than Joe Biden's path. I think the president's path is far much more legitimate than Joe Biden's path. And I don't think that Joe Biden, even if they call it for Joe Biden, it goes to a verification process. Number one, you've got 4, 5 statewide recounts that we're going to see calls for, and canvasses of the ballot as well. That is to say that you literally match every single ballot to every single person on the voter roll and make sure it is theirs and make sure it was cast the way they want it to be cast, right? So you've got that needs to take place. That's a 2-month operation in and of itself, right? And then number two, I don't believe that the state secretaries are going to verify. When Georgia comes out and says, hey, Mr. State Secretary, we found this device and it has 60,000 ballots on it. He's not going to send that verified. That's going to get tied up in court. And speaking of court, you're also going to see, let's talk about this morning. Okay, so the Trump campaign, Jason Miller comes out before the Twitter ban or the Twitter suppression of his tweet, Jason Miller comes out and he says, hey, we've got some great news, right? Great news in court. What was that great news?
Well, the great news was that the Trump campaign would finally be permitted to have election observers at the table within 6 feet of those that are counted.
So let's be clear. The Trump campaign originally was not allowed monitors within 6 feet of the people who were counting the ballots.
Yes.
Okay, outrage number one.
Yeah.
Outrage number two.
They were finally permitted by a court order to install those election observers to make sure that ballots were being counted partially.
Right.
And that is something that is typically afforded under the law in every state to both campaigns. You can have two representatives from each party, and so they were permitted to by court order.
So they were permitted to. So victory, right? That's it. Let's end the show.
Unfortunately, not.
Right.
The next step was that the sheriff here in Philadelphia refused to enforce.
No, you missed a step.
Oh, well, then correct me.
The step was they went with the court order back to the count and tried to go in.
Right.
And they were not allowed by the bureaucrats, the lefty bureaucrats in the count in. So outrage number two. Outrage number three, go ahead.
The sheriff refused to enforce that court order.
So they called the county sheriff with the court order and said, they're not letting us into the count. We've obtained a court order. And the sheriff said, sorry, the law doesn't apply here. I am the law. And the law is the Democrats win, no matter what. That's the sheriff's suit in Philadelphia.
Yep.
Okay. So where do we stand?
Well, then it went to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court.
Right.
And they have elected to basically rescind that court order.
To overturn the Commonwealth Court.
Yep. And now we're going to have to move on to federal court, I believe.
Yeah.
You actually tweeted this earlier.
Yeah.
You posed the question, where is A.G. Barr? There is fraud happening at an industrial scale across this country in key states that will define the next.
I kind of want to know where the president is, Harlan. I don't know why the president isn't visible. And I don't know why Kayleigh McEnany. I want the president to be signing executive orders, getting on with the business of government, showing that he is the president and he intends to remain the president, right? I want to see Kayleigh McEnany up at the press podium in the Brady press briefing room, telling the American public about the fraud that they are finding on a minute by minute. But she should be going out there every half an hour. Okay, here's something for you all to do. Go onto Kayleigh McEnany's Twitter account, tell her I love her, but tell her that she needs to be going up there every 30 minutes with an update, right? Not from the campaign's perspective. She doesn't work for the campaign. From the American public's perspective, that is her job. She is the spokesman of the president of the United States. He's not the president of Republicans. He's the president of the United States. And she should be up there. Democracy is under attack. You have ballot terrorists out there in the form of the Democratic Party, in the form of George Soros, in the form of the sheriff here in Philadelphia, in the form of the Supreme Court here in Philadelphia, who want to make sure they keep counting until Biden gets elected, right? Because right now Biden ain't getting elected here in Pennsylvania, and they know it. Harlan, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I want the president to stand up and be more vocal and visible. What I feel like is happening right now, Raheem, is that the Democrats and the media are killing this election very slowly.
Yeah.
This didn't blow up in our faces with a massive example of voter fraud happening over the course of days.
Yeah.
We just didn't accept this.
We're not going to. We're back with more National Pulse in just a second.
That's right. Hi, Dad.
Do you know your dad?
Go ahead and film me. What's that?
Do you know your dad?
Do I know my dad?
Yeah. Who are you saying hi, Dad, to?
Oh, she got me. Welcome back to the National Pulse. Okay, so look, we talked in the last week. That was the wonderful sun damaged haired lady that came to. Oh, sorry, was that bitchy? Who came to assault us earlier here in Philadelphia. We'll be out there in a second. So if anybody out there is watching this, we'll be out for round 2 after your killer knockout blow. Harlan, I want to just go back to what we were talking about, because people in the live chat are getting fired up about it. They want to hear from Kayleigh McEnany. They want to hear from the President of the United States. They want to know the state of affairs out there. And, it's all well and good. We love Jason Miller. It's all well and good it coming from Jason Miller's Twitter feed or Corey Lewandowski's Twitter feed or whatever it is. But, standing behind the plaque, the seal of the President of the United States is something completely different. And that's what the president has the ability to do. It's what Kayleigh McEnany has the ability to do in the White House press briefing room. So let's walk through this. What do you think is the holdup here? What do you think that they're waiting for? Just to collate this data maybe and then come forward with it all at once? Hit the Democrats with a big hammer blow?
I don't know why they're holding the president back. Doesn't make sense. Now is the time to strike. This is the moment when people are most ticked off.
Is this Jared Kushner? Because we know this is Jared Kushner. No, but is this Jared Kushner's strategy of, hey, keep the president back, don't let him get into the fray of all of this, make it look like he's rising above everything, not constantly complaining, and then we'll deploy him when we need to in 2 months' time?
If that's the case, that's a huge mistake.
It is a mistake.
We should be in a
It's not like Jared Kushner to make mistakes.
I tweeted, we should be. This is war. We need to be in a wartime mindset. They are trying to steal. They're not trying. They are stealing the country.
Yeah. Washington didn't hang back.
No. And you were talking about the president standing up behind that podium with the seal in front of him, and now is the time that we need it. And what we need is leadership, right? And on our side, there are a lot of good pundits, including you. Good reporters like you that are stepping up and filling that void. But ultimately, you can't fill the shoes of the president.
Right.
He's the leader of this party.
Right.
He's the person that we elected. He's the person that we're fighting for in this election.
Right.
And so we need to hear from him, not just on Twitter. That's insufficient.
Right.
He needs to address the nation.
Yeah. Yeah. And what would you have him say?
This election is being stolen.
Yeah. Your
vote is being devalued. And this isn't just about this election. It's about the integrity of the elections that will come, right? And if we start to lose faith in the value of our ballot, then we're going to resort to methods that I don't think anybody wants.
Yeah, I think that, look, I mean,
every country
the only recourse, exactly. It's not a prediction. It's a reflection on what happens all around the world. When the ballot is undermined, when the people are trodden upon, when institutions, there's no feedback mechanisms, there's no transparency, there's no policing. We got the sheriff here in Philadelphia today telling Corey Lewandowski and Pam Bondi in the Trump campaign to go and swivel, right? Go and sit on it. Go suck eggs. We're not enforcing the law, right? So you have that taking place. It's the breakdown of law and order. It's the breakdown of the electoral system. It's the breakdown of civil society, which you already see on the streets. Yeah. At what point does the president step in and go, hey, look, even if the president doesn't want to go out there and say, I've won, he doesn't need to go out there and say, I've won. He's won. He should go out there and say, look, this election is not what Americans hope from our system. And even he should directly speak to Americans on the political left. He should look down the barrel of a camera and he should say, you would never let us do this to you, and nor should you. We would never try and do it to you. But in 20, 30, 40 years' time, you don't want people to try and do this to you. You don't know what's coming in the future. You don't know what nefarious characters will be operating in 50 years' time. You do want this to happen to you. And so you should side with the side who's saying, hey, you can't just find 369,000 ballots. If you found them tucked behind the dresser in the polling location, then you've got to go back and those people have to be repolled. And if you can't do that, then you have to recount the entire state. You have to repoll the entire state, as far as I'm concerned. You cannot operate an election like Vladimir Putin does, where he just keeps counting until he gets elected, like Robert Mugabe does, or did. You keep counting until you get elected, like Gaddafi did, like Saddam Hussein did. You look, I know Ilhan Omar's parents worked for the socialist totalitarian party. By the way, they were not refugees. You know that So, Ilhan Omar's family worked for the administration that was persecuting people in Somalia. They left the country when the dictatorship was deposed. They're the bad guys. And we give them refuge. You can't end up with an election system like that, because guess what? If it happens this time and it's allowed to happen this time, it will for sure happen next time. It'll become part of the election itself. It will be built into the strategy. This time they threw it in last second, hoping that we would just lay back and the president wouldn't do anything about it. And he's not.
I mean, does anybody really believe that a senile candidate for president that couldn't get more than 20 people to a rally?
20 Toyotas.
Yeah, 20 Toyotas, yeah. To a rally, was able to surpass the voter turnout of Barack Obama?
No.
We may not like Barack Obama, but you got to acknowledge his political game. Right? I mean,
right.
He was a political force that excited people, that motivated people to get out to the vote.
Right.
And you're telling me that Joe Biden, who ran a ghost campaign with Kamala Harris, was able to drive the highest turnout of any presidential candidate in the history of the United States?
What you're saying is there's not 300,000 fraudulent votes out there.
There's millions.
There are 3 million. There are 10.
More, we don't even know.
Right. Ask yourself and ask every left-wing friend of yours that question. When you're talking about this, do you really believe that Joe Biden got that many people out to break records to vote for him? Well, Harlan, we've run out of time somehow. That went very quickly. Yeah. We're going to head back out onto the streets here, bring you live coverage on Periscope and on Twitter. Remember the 5 p.m. special War Room today, 5 to 7. Steve Bannon, Jack Maxey, all the whole team, all the latest news, all the latest polling data from Richard Barris and his whole team over there at Big Data Poll. Harlan Hill, thanks for joining us here on the show today. We'll see you again tomorrow, probably